Have you ever wished you could stand up before death and say, "You lost. No more funerals, no more pain, no more fear"? Are you ready to say that and to truly mean it? Well, Jehovah has promised complete victory over our enemy death by bringing billions of people back from the dead to enjoy life and to end it permanently. But what does that victory actually look like? And how complete is it? Well, let's read Jehovah's own words describing it at Revelation chapter 21 and verse number 4. And I invite you to look that up and see this extraordinary promise in Revelation chapter 21 and verse number 4. And he will wipe out every tear from their eyes, and death will be no more. Neither will mourning, nor outcry, nor pain be any more. The former things have passed away. Do you notice the introduction there of the verse? And he will wipe out every tear from their eyes. He, God, Jehovah, he personally will do this. The tears we shed, the pain we feel, that's deeply personal for him. Think about those tears, what they represent. The grief, the suffering, the heartache. For Jehovah, he sees when it especially touches us when we lose someone we love. But Jehovah just doesn't say that these tears would fade away with time or be dried. No, he says he will remove the causes for those tears. And what are those causes? Well, isn't our main cause our enemy, death? And what does Jehovah say he'll do about that? Notice said there in the verse, and death will be no more. Isn't that powerful? And the verse continues, neither will mourning, nor outcry, nor pain be any more. The former things have passed away. So for Jehovah to have complete victory over death, what must he do? Well, the answer is clear. The resurrection is Jehovah's victory over death. That's why the theme of this Bible talk is not a wish, it's a declaration of confidence. So now there are three critical questions we need to consider. What is the resurrection? Why can we be sure that the resurrection hope is real? And how does our faith in the resurrection benefit us? So let's answer that first question posed. What is the resurrection that will soon take place? First, we need to understand something fundamental. Jehovah doesn't want people to die. He wants them to live. And in fact, throughout the Bible, he promises to restore life to those who have died. For example, in Revelation chapter 20 and verse number 6, it shows a limited number of people will be resurrected to life in heaven. There they'll serve as kings and priests alongside Jesus, helping to restore mankind to the perfect condition that Jehovah originally purposed. But what about for the vast majority of humankind? Well, the Bible explains that most who have died will be resurrected right here on earth. Please see how this is confirmed at Acts chapter 24 and verse number 15. That's Acts chapter 24. And in verse number 15 we read, "And I have hope toward God, which hope these men also look forward to, that there is going to be a resurrection of both the righteous and the unrighteous." Do you notice the confidence in that statement? There is going to be a resurrection. So then, who will be resurrected here on the earth? Well, The verse says, both the righteous and the unrighteous. Now, who does that include? The righteous, as stated there, are faithful men and women who served Jehovah while they were alive. And the unrighteous, they include those who died without having a sufficient opportunity to know Jehovah. And just imagine what that'll be like when over 6,000 years of deaths are undone. Billions who are now sleeping in the grave will be brought back to life. And what an incredible prospect that'll be. So what does this teach us? Both the righteous and the unrighteous will have the opportunity to live forever on paradise earth. Now that may sound like a lot of people, so you may wonder, does that mean that just everyone who has ever died will be resurrected back to life here on the earth? Well, let's see what Jesus himself said. Please turn to John chapter 5 and verse number 28 and 29. Here in John 5, verse 28, he says, "Do not be amazed at this, for the hour is coming in which all those in the memorial tombs will hear his voice and come out. Those who did good things to a resurrection of life, and those who practice vile things to a resurrection of judgment." Now, it's very interesting there. Who did Jesus say will be resurrected? You notice in the verse, all those in the memorial tombs. So does that mean everyone? No. If you click on verse number 28, you'll see there's a study note for that expression, the memorial tombs. And it states, the term carries the implication of preserving the memory of the deceased person. In this context, it suggests that the person who died is remembered by God. So simply put, only those who are in Jehovah's memory will be resurrected. Those who deliberately rejected the opportunity to serve Jehovah before their death will not be raised to life. Now, at the same time, we don't know exactly who will or who will not be resurrected. And that's not our role, our decision. Jehovah, who can see each heart perfectly, will make the right decision every time. Now, let me ask you a personal question. Who do you want to see again? Take a moment. It's a safe place. Put yourself there. Picture that person. Imagine welcoming them back. The March 2016 Life and Ministry Meeting Workbook commented, instead of funerals, there may be welcoming sessions for the resurrected. But like those in our image, who would you like to run to? Who would you like to embrace? No doubt someone is already coming to your mind, just like for me. What an amazing privilege it'll be to be there and to welcome them back. So for clarity, what is the resurrection? The Bible promises that billions who've died will be brought back to life here on earth. Jehovah wants them to live again. Now that brings us to our second question. Why can we be sure that the resurrection hope is real? Let's consider three compelling reasons. First, Jehovah deeply loves people. Well, what evidence do we have? Jehovah paid the highest price to make everlasting life and the resurrection possible. At John 3:16, it states, "For God loved the world so much that he gave his only begotten Son, so that everyone exercising faith in him might not be destroyed, but have everlasting life." Think about that. Parents, how many of you would give up your child for someone else? Jehovah did. And more than that, Jehovah longs to bring back those who have died. This proves something powerful. Jehovah's love for people, for you, for me, it is deep and personal. A second reason is about how the resurrection hope is real, is that Jehovah has the power and the memory to do it. Please turn with me to Isaiah chapter 40. And let's look together in verse number 26 to see his power and memory, but also his ability. That's Isaiah chapter 40 and verse number 26. Here we read, "Lift up your eyes to heaven and see. Who has created these things? It is the one who brings out their army by number, who calls them all by name. Because of his vast dynamic energy and his awe-inspiring power, not one of them is missing." Scientists estimate that our Milky Way galaxy alone may contain up to 400 billion stars. And yet, what does this verse tell us? Jehovah calls them all by name. Not one of them is missing. Think about what that means. If Jehovah can keep track of billions of stars, each one unique, then he can certainly remember every detail about every person who has died. Have you ever walked through an old cemetery and perhaps noticed gravestones where the names were faded away? After years of weathering, we may not even know who's buried there. Over time, people forget, but Jehovah never forgets. Every detail, every memory, every personality trait is perfectly preserved in his mind. So what does this teach us? Jehovah has both the power and the perfect memory to restore every person completely, just as they were. Now, reason number 3 for what makes the resurrection hope real is that Jehovah has entrusted with the resurrecting of the dead to Jesus. Notice in John chapter 6 and verse 40, what an important share Jehovah has given Jesus in resurrecting the dead. In John chapter 6 and verse number 40, as you come down there, and as you pass by verse 35, you'll see this account says that Jesus, he is the one speaking. He was the one saying these things to them. So in verse 40, we pick up the reading here. "For this is the will of my Father, that everyone who recognizes the Son and exercises faith in him should have everlasting life. I will resurrect him on the last day." Who will perform the resurrections? Notice what he said there. That's Jesus saying, "For this is the will of my Father. I will resurrect." So it's clear. Jehovah has entrusted Jesus with bringing the dead back to life. Why is Jesus the perfect choice? Well, let's think about it. Just imagine your favorite food. You got it? Okay. Now, if you had to choose someone to make it for you, who would you pick? Would it be someone who doesn't cook? Probably not. Instead, you're more likely to choose the person you know and you're confident in has made it before and has done this so well. Well, Jesus understands everything about the human body. And, more importantly, he has raised the dead before. And that makes him the perfect choice. While on earth, Jesus' miracles prove that Jehovah had given him the power over death. Take one real-life resurrection account that highlights both his ability and desire. I invite you to look with me in John chapter 11. And as you come down towards verse 33, this is the account where Lazarus, who is Jesus' friend, has died. And as we approach verse 33, when Jesus arrives, what does he see? Jesus saw many people weeping. And how did he respond? Well, publicly in verse 35, it says, Jesus gave way to tears. And in verse 36, it was clear that the other ones around him, says the Jews began to say, see what affection he had for him. But his affection now moved him to action. He wanted to desire to do something good. And so in verse number 39, we learn some very powerful facts. Notice it says 4 days Lazarus had been in the grave. And Lazarus' own sister, she commented about him. She said, Lord, by now he must smell. Why? Because of his flesh. He was starting to decay, his brain cells separating. And from a human standpoint, there was no hope. But Jesus knew what he was about to do. He was going to perform a resurrection that had never been done before like this. It was unprecedented. So in verse number 41 and 42, after Jesus prayed, he says in verse 43, confidently trusting that Jehovah would hear him, he called out, Lazarus, come out. And what happened? Well, notice verse 44. The man who had been dead came out with his feet and hands bound with wrappings, and his face was wrapped with a cloth. Jesus said to them, free him and let him go. Lazarus walked out of the tomb. He was alive. And our picture shows on their faces the shock, the joy, the tears turning into hugs despite the smell. Jesus here restored Lazarus' flesh, his memories and experiences. This miracle proves beyond any doubt Jesus has the ability and the desire to bring back those who have fallen asleep in death. And he definitely has the complete power over death. So why can we be absolutely sure that the resurrection hope will happen? Because Jehovah loves people deeply. He has the power and the memory to restore life. And he's entrusted Jesus, who has already demonstrated his ability and his desire to resurrect the dead. So when Jehovah says it's time, Jesus will start resurrecting the dead. Now, as you watch the following video, notice what helped those interviewed build their faith in the resurrection hope. Please watch.
I was never very religious. In university, I majored in biotechnology, where I became immersed in the theory of evolution. To me, the Bible was just a Western cultural artifact, not at all based on science. Then I came across the Awake magazine. I was surprised to find that the articles it contained about biology and other scientific topics were very logical. So I began to question whether such highly complex biological systems had really come about on their own. For a car to work properly, hundreds of parts need to be assembled in the right order. Even the slightest change can cause the car to malfunction. But biological systems, such as DNA, RNA, and proteins, are even more complex. I started to feel that it was illogical to believe that they had come about by chance. and so I began studying the Bible with a new perspective. Around 3,500 years ago, the Bible revealed the fact that the earth is suspended upon nothing. However, scientists only discovered this about 300 years ago. As I discovered more of these truths, I became more convinced that the Bible could not have come from humans and that it is in harmony with science. As I gained confidence in the Bible, I also began to trust God's promise of a resurrection. Moreover, the Bible says that Jehovah will long for the work of his own hand. There's no doubt that Jehovah has both the will and the power to resurrect those who are in his memory. Having a strong conviction in the resurrection brings me great hope and comfort.
Ever since I was young, I attended church regularly. I grew up believing that when people do good things, they go to heaven, and when they do bad things, they go to hell, and that the soul of a person who has died continues to watch over and guide their loved ones. When my husband died in 2018, it was very difficult for me. One day, a woman who was one of Jehovah's Witnesses visited me, and she comforted me with the hope of the resurrection on earth. However, considering the beliefs that I had, I still wondered why my husband was not guiding me. So the sister shared Ecclesiastes chapter 9, verses 5 and 10 with me. I learned that there is no immortal soul, and that our dead loved ones don't feel anything. She explained that God's original purpose is for people to live forever on earth. That truth from the Bible set me free from the false teachings that I was taught in church. And because of that, I decided to get baptized. Jehovah is a very merciful, wise, and loving God. Acts chapter 24, verse 15 says that Jehovah will resurrect even the unrighteous. I know that then I will see and be together with my loved ones again. I look forward to teaching resurrected ones who still don't know about Jehovah and helping them to serve him.
Well, like our brother Jung-soo and sister Lely, we now ask, how does our faith in the resurrection hope benefit us? Well, there are four powerful ways. First, our lives gain greater meaning. We no longer just living for the moment. We're living every day for Jehovah with everlasting life clearly in mind. Second, this hope brings comfort when we lose someone in death. Yes, we grieve, but we do not lose hope. The resurrection gives us the strength to keep going, knowing that those in Jehovah's approval, those who are in his memory, are safe. And third, it gives us courage. Whether we face illness or hardship or even persecution, these no longer overwhelm us. Why? Because our hope acts like an anchor that is steady and secure no matter what we face. And fourth, and most importantly, this hope draws us closer to Jehovah. Friends, think about what we've seen together. We've learned how the resurrection will completely end death. We've seen why we can trust this hope is real. And we've felt how strong faith in this promise benefits us right now. So now the question becomes, what will we do with what we've learned? Let's read Jesus' words at John chapter 11 and verse number 25 and 26. Here in John 11, verse 25, Jesus said to her, "I am the resurrection and the life. The one who exercises faith in me, even though he dies, will come to life. And everyone who is living and exercises faith in me will never die at all. Do you believe this? Jesus describes himself here as the resurrection and the life. In other words, through him, everlasting life becomes possible. For you, for me, and for all those in Jehovah's memory. But there's something required. Do you see the call to action here? You notice we have to exercise faith in Jesus. So the question is not what we've learned, the question is personal. Jesus asked Martha, do you believe this? And in effect, he's asking each one of us, do you believe this? Do you believe he can restore life? That he can bring back those we've lost and completely end death? Well, if we do, then we act. We strengthen our faith. We draw closer to Jehovah, and we show our appreciation for what he and his Son have made possible. And because of that, we can now say with confidence what we once wished we could say. Death, you lost. No more funerals. No more pain. No more fear. Because through the resurrection, we will gain the victory over death.